I want to touch on another thing that I read that had a big, made a big impression on me. You wrote that there are numerous business corporations owned all or in part by their employees. Millions belong to cooperatives, and there has been a proliferation of social enterprises. A common theme of all of these institutional initiatives is that they are not just run, they are not run just or at all for profit. Hence, they do not drive, nor are they dependent on economic growth for their success. In a successful non-growing economy, these and other novel institutional forms will thrive. Tell us about worker cooperatives. Why are they important? What can we as a government do to facilitate the formation of worker cooperatives in society?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure I have much of an answer for you on that. It's another one of these sentences which I thought led on to some creative thinking of others. I was quite influenced by a book by Gar Alperovitz. I don't know if you know Gar, an American. And he has in his book somewhere, and his American rights in the US, but 135 million Americans belong to a co-op of one sort or another. I thought, who would have believed that? That's remarkable. But when you understand it, credit unions are co-ops, for example. So it includes lots of things which aren't called co-ops. Now, when you ask about worker cooperatives, one aspect of workers' cooperatives which disturbs me, and I don't know a way around this, is that it's sometimes when businesses fail, that then the workers get to take over if that opportunity is given them. Well, it's always tough to start with a failing business and to build that into something good. So really what we need to do is to find a way of creating more workers' cooperatives which don't start out on the back foot, if you see what I mean. Now, whether, and you're a lawyer, you might know this better than I do, whether there are changes to the law that would make it easier for workers to own their facilities, that I wouldn't know, but probably there are opportunities. But something else comes to mind here. This pandemic has changed the way we work and the way we think about work in quite significant ways. You hear more and more, of course, people working at home. And one of the thoughts that's crossed my mind, I've never actually discussed it with anybody, is if an employer has an employee who's working at home, will the employer pay the employee for the rental of the space at home that's now being used for work? I mean, there's a great incentive for employers who can get their employees to work at home at the worker's own expense and save on all of those business costs. But what comes back to the employee? Now, that some might say, oh, well, we'll let the market sort that out. Well, I don't think that's the best that we can do. I think that there may be some way of obliging employers to pay the worker for the workspace. Now, why is this interesting? If you go back to the history of factories, before you had factories, you had, if you like, craftsmen, well, they were mostly men, they owned their tools. They were modest, of course. The blacksmith owned his blacksmith tools and so on. With the factories, the workers no longer owned anything except their labor. So the ownership of the means of production, to use that phrase, went to the owners of capital. And then the capitalism developed such that the workers only got paid for their labor, and everything that's left over went to the owners of everything that was owned. Now, if the work system is changing, and now the worker once again owning the computers that they work on, the space that they work with, you kind of wonder, is this going to transform the economic system that we now largely work in? And I think the opportunities are there, but how that'll unfold, I couldn't venture.
And just to answer a point you raised earlier, I don't think it's primarily a legal impediment that we're dealing with. It's a financial and educational issue. We need to train our workers in the whole notion of owning and operating their own businesses. But more than anything, we need to provide them with the financing necessary for them to acquire the means of production and to operate the means of production in their mutual self-interest. For me, this is an absolutely critical plank of our economic platform, and the one that we should be doing everything as a party, the Green Party of Canada, to promote.
You know, just as an aside, when students used to study economics, there were various things on their lists, like the history of economic thought, you know, the history of economic history, the evolution of economic systems, comparative economic systems. It wasn't just the study of capitalism, and different organizations. So they would study cooperatives. Those have pretty much all been dropped out of the curriculum. So now economic students are being trained incredibly narrowly. They're often very good at mathematics and very good at statistical analysis, but the knowledge of the society and the economic system, plus its links to the biosphere, that are absolutely fundamental to understanding what we're facing and how to move forward, it's not there. And economists, and I, of course, still am one, and some of my best friends are economists, end up often in very powerful positions. And so we've got a real problem with worldview that's being put forward as the norm and the only way to go. It's a big, big obstacle. And I try to do my bit with others to tackle, eat away at this, but yeah, there's much more to be done.
And that's why educators like you and Maria are so absolutely critical to the well-being of our society.